total population, 96.71% speak one of the scheduled languages as mother tongues, while 3.29% speak other tongues. It is the tiny part of the Indian subcontinent, the northeast, that houses most of the non-scheduled languages, at least 62 languages out of the 99, without which the linguistic diversity would be half of what it is now. This is another way of organizing the languages of India. We can see that, look at this Tibeto-Burmese group, 66 languages. Austroasiatic, we have 14. The other major language groups are Indo-Aryan and Dravidian. Of course, the number of languages in those are small, but the number of speakers are more. Like Indo-Aryan is spoken by 78%, Dravidian by 19%. Austroasiatic is spoken only by 1.11%. Then we have Tibeto-Burman. Though the number of languages is the most, the number of speakers is very less. It's only 1.01. These are the names of the languages among the Tibeto-Burmese group. There are all these 66 languages. Most of you are familiar with these language names. I don't have to go through it. Besides the above, the census of India combines the mother tongues of 1,875,542.15% speakers under other languages. The non-inclusion and marginalization of many languages with less than 10,000 speakers trigger emotional problems that could give rise to communal tensions in the respective states or union territories where they are predominantly spoken. The Indian languages are classified in various ways. First, we saw the classification as scheduled versus non-scheduled. Now we are seeing tribal versus non-tribal. There are many languages labeled as tribal languages except Bodo and Santali. None of them are scheduled languages. As per 2011 census, with about 550 tribes, the scheduled tribe population constitutes 8.6% of the total population. This term is not used in the pejorative sense. The government of India has recognized some of the tribes as notified tribes, and the languages of these indigenous communities are referred to as tribal languages in the Constitution, in Article 342. It can be observed that these tribes are mostly concentrated in three distinct zones: Northeast India, Central and East India, comprising Madhya Pradesh, Bihar, Andhra Pradesh, Jharkhand, Chhattisgarh, Orissa, and West Bengal. Southern India too. These languages are unique in many ways. Most of the tribes of Northeast India are economically and socially well placed than the other two groups. The Northeast India has many communities who speak a variety of languages that are under-resourced, less explored, under-described, and very little documentation has been done so far. And to add to it, most of these languages do not have any script. Yes, they are unwritten. That is why it is very interesting to see how and what we can do to improve the education system for tribal languages. The scheduled languages constitute the major languages of our country, whereas the non-scheduled and the other could fall under the minority label. Defining minority languages in the Indian context is not so easy. There are many definitional issues. There is no internationally agreed definition of indigenous peoples, linguistic minorities, and ethnic minorities. A universal definition is not necessary or desirable. Regional and national approaches may differ. Let us try to understand how people define ethnic communities. These are politicized cultural groups, religious, linguistic, racial, tribal, immigrant, etc. This is the definition elsewhere. In Northeast India, when people talk about ethnic communities, they say these are ethnic movements. Most of the studies talk about ethnic movements as tribal movements. So that means it is directly connected with ethnic communities is equivalent to tribal communities. Many studies use tribes, ethnic communities, indigenous people, etc. interchangeably. The minorities in India. There are different types of minorities. Religious minorities, for example, Muslims, Christians, Sikhs, Jains, etc. Ethnic minorities based on culture, and linguistic minorities based on language. The Constitution of India recognizes minorities based on religion, culture, language, or script. Article 29. The word minorities appears in Article 29 to 30 and 350A to 350B, but there is no proper definition of the term minority groups. The Supreme Court of India in 1958 defined language of the minority community as a community numerically less than 50%. This is applicable only at the state level. For instance, Bodo, Dogri, Kashmiri, Maithili, and Santali are not official languages in any single state, despite being spoken by more than 50% of the total population of certain states. On the other hand, Urdu, the official language of Jammu and Kashmir, is spoken by less than 1% of the total population of the state. Thus, defining minority languages on the basis of their numerical strength seems to be inappropriate. There are various definitions for linguistic minorities. The National Commission for Linguistic Minorities defines linguistic minority as any group or groups of people whose mother tongues are different from the principal language of the state and at the district and taluka or tahsil levels, different from the principal language of the district or taluka or tehsil concerned. This is from the 52nd report of the NCLM. The United Nations, in its 2010 report, defines minorities as those non-dominant groups in a population which possess and wish to preserve stable national, ethnic, religious, or linguistic identity, which differs from that of the majority population. The only feature shared by most of the minority languages of India is they are different from the rest of the population. Some scholars like Batibo define minority language as follows. This is from a sociolinguistic point of view. A minority language is defined not only by its relative demographic inferiority, but also and more so by its limited public functions. It can be defined horizontally by looking at non-dominant position in relation to other dominant languages in the region, and vertically on the basis of its low status and absence of use in public or official areas. The linguistic minorities can be broadly grouped into two. Relative minorities. These are the speakers of scheduled languages found in other states or union territories in a small number. There is an existence of a kin state using the language as an official language. For example, the speakers of Bangla in Meghalaya, or the speakers of Nepali. These are scheduled languages. And but of course, speakers of Bengali or Nepali will be larger in number. So in that sense, it will not be. But in the state of Assam, it will be larger. But there could be only a small number of Assamese living in Meghalaya. So then they are the relative minorities when it is found in another state. Absolute minorities, these are speakers of non-scheduled languages. These are the tribal and the non-tribal and the others. This is the absolute minorities is of our concern for today's talk. The minorities have been vulnerable to assertions of ethnic identities. Several communities claim separate identities. Ethnic identities make sense only within the ethnic boundaries. As many of us know, people have multiple identities and they live with multiple identities. Living with multiple identities is a normal way of life for people of Northeast India. Depending on the context and time, the identity changes. For example, I'm actually right now giving this talk from sitting somewhere in Thiruvananthapuram in a hotel. And interestingly, I saw some waitresses in the restaurant. They are from Northeast India, but when I asked them, I know they're from the Northeast, and when I asked them, where are you from? They said Nagaland. Okay, Nagaland, fine. What language you speak? They would like to mention only Nagamese. Then I said, what's your mother tongue? I think maybe there was some inhibitions. Either they didn't want to talk about their mother tongue, or they believe maybe people who come to Kerala may not know much about Northeast India, which is also true. So whatever the reason may be, the identity was only Northeast India, and I am Nagamese. But one could have many identities, as you know. Suppose you are living in Northeast India and you are a Paite speaker. So when you meet a fellow Paite speaker, who are you? Of course, I am a Paite. But when you meet a Tharda also, you will say, yes, I am a Paite speaker, because they are, of course, related. They belong to the same subfamily of the Northern Kuki-Chin group. But then when Paite meets, say, our person, automatically they would say, I am, or the other person would say, she's a Kuki, and so on and so forth. So the identity changes based on the context and time. There have been several ethnic conflicts due to identity crisis in the Northeast. Alienation of indigenous people in different socio-economic and political sphere. This led to the emergence of the so-called ethnic assertion and ethnic conflict. Many ethnic clashes have taken place. For example, the one between Kuki and Naga in 1992 to 1998, Kuki and Paite in the year 97 to 98, Chakasang Tangkul 95 to 96, and of course, many of you are aware of the Sons of Soils movement in Assam. Why am I talking about this here? Is this related to our talk today? Yes, ethnic conflicts can happen due to various factors. One of them is language. The Sons of Soils movement in Assam took place because people did not want Assamese to be introduced in the schools. So the first riot before and after passing the official language bill by the State Assembly happened in 1961 to 62. The second riot took place in 1972, mainly because Assamese was imposed as a medium of instruction, and this led to the Assamese Hindu Bengalis clash. Afterwards, I don't want to elaborate on that. Afterwards, there were other clashes too. But the point here is, suppose what happens here in a bilingual situation. Many times when the non-Assamese person, or for example, somebody living in Assam, say a Dimasa or some other community, are forced to attend a bilingual school where Assamese is the medium of instruction. What happens here is something called the bilingual deficit, because these kids are handicapped in many ways when they are taught with children of the majority language, because there is no bilingual education in our country in many places exclusively for the minority school children. It's most of the times a mixed group, so they have to study along with the majority language speakers. So what happens is they have to develop literacy skills in language that they either do not know or know only superficially and cannot fall back on their first language. This is the case of subtractive bilingualism. When it comes to native language literacy, many times we see that there is forcible assimilation or reluctant bilingualism and linguistic pluralism. How to reverse this? Can these kids get education in their own language or mother tongue? This brings us to the notion of linguistic human rights. Minority language right issues are not recent cases. These appeared in the Treaty of Bucharest 1812 and the Treaty of Versailles 1919 until the end of the 19th century. Later on, they formed the base in the early 20th century for the formulation of domestic or international policies of different countries. The right to learn, to educate, and unfold all cultural activities in one's own mother tongue, in addition to other official languages, is enshrined in many constitutions of the world. Linguistic rights are the basic human rights. Now, what does our constitution has to say about linguistic rights? We will look into that. Before that, I would like to draw your attention to certain facts. Linguistic majorities, that is, the speakers of a dominant language, usually enjoy all those linguistic human rights. When we say linguistic human right is my basic human right, am I able to enjoy my rights? It's only the majorities who enjoy. Most linguistic minorities, including tribal languages in the world, do not enjoy these rights. Only speakers of official languages enjoy all linguistic human rights. So we have 22 official languages. So the group of the speakers of these 22 languages enjoy all the human rights, linguistic human rights. The denial of linguistic rights not only hampers the cultural development of a community, but is also detrimental for the social and economic development of a minority and for the society as such. Thus, linguistic minorities are compelled to defend their linguistic rights. That's why we see so many clashes or identity crisis. All right, if that is the case, what does our government offer for us, especially with the language policies? We know very well linguistic reorganization of states took place, and it was a strategy to homogenize a state, the language spoken by the majority, at least over 50% of the total population. Only then that would become the official language. But this is not done in all states, you know very well. Even you can take the case of Kasi in Meghalaya, it's spoken by more than 50% of the total population, but yet it is not the official language of the state. Three language formula, the old three language formula, what it says that each state or union territory should adopt the three languages, should implement the three languages. Mother tongue or regional language should be there along with Hindi and English. This was fully endorsed by the chief ministers of many states in 1961, except Tamil Nadu and some parts of Northeast India. For the old three language formula, there were four types of responses. There were language movements against the policies like that happened in Tamil Nadu, segregation from the mainstream communities, assimilation with the larger or majority language communities, or adoption of multiple strategies. There are several constitutional safeguards with regard to policies. Notes, any section of the citizens residing in the territory of India or any part thereof having a distinct language, script, or culture of its own shall have the right to conserve the same. This clearly guarantees the right of minorities to conserve their cultural as well as linguistic traditions. Article 30 guarantees all the religious and linguistic minorities to establish and administer educational institutions of their own in order to preserve their heritage. I repeat, this Article 30 is very important because it allows and it guarantees that linguistic minorities can establish and administer the educational institutions of their own. That means one could have many schools teaching all the linguistic minority languages. There are provisions for them to secure state funds for their educational institutions. Article 347 allows the use of minority languages for official purposes. 70% monolingual, 30% bilingual. Article 350A provides provision to provide adequate facilities for instruction in the mother tongue at the primary stage of education to children belonging to linguistic minority groups. Though there is provision to provide adequate facilities, now we have to tap upon the resources and see how we can impart mother tongue education or a mother tongue instruction in the 200 plus languages or mother tongues of the Northeast India, for instance. Article 350B gives power to the President to appoint appropriate officers and use proper methods to investigate and safeguard the rights of the linguistic minorities. Sixth schedule, the people of Northeast India are familiar with this. This gives provisions to the administration of the tribal areas. The aim of a constitutional setup for the tribal areas of the Northeast was to see that the aspirations of the people of the area are met on the one hand, and on the other, that these areas are assimilated with the mainstream of the country. This was the framing of the sixth schedule. When it comes to implementing of language policies, it has not been always successful for various reasons, both external and internal to linguistic minorities. A majority of tribal languages are shifting to the dominant language in almost every functional domain. This is because of the impact of the old three-language formula. The functional domain of these languages are restricted to home and intra-group communication. The reduction in their functional load in the public domain is leading minority languages towards attrition. Let us take a look at the new three-language formula, the NEP 2020. There's greater flexibility in the implementation of the three-language formula because we know that it states no language will be imposed on any state. The three languages learned by children will be the choices of states, regions, and of course the students themselves, so long as at least two of the three languages are native to India. Hopefully, many of the smaller languages will see the light of the day and be included in school education. I would like to look some more points or put forward in the NEP 2020. One such scheme is Ek Bharat Shrestha Bharat. In that scheme, it is possible for us to develop print and digital materials on minority languages that could be utilized in the fun project or activity on the languages of India in grades 6 to 8. That means what I'm trying to say here is it is our responsibility, whether it is the central government institutions or the state government institutions, it could be NCERT, it could be CIL or joint work or some other even associations, literary associations of the indigenous communities who could jointly produce lots of materials on minority languages so that these could be learned by kids all over India, not just in the Northeast. Short films, documentaries could also be produced on the culture and society of the indigenous and lesser known communities so that the students know their neighbors. Many of them don't even know their neighbors. So it is very important that such materials are being produced. The NEP 2020 also talks about equitable and inclusive education, learning for all. On page 25, point number 6.23 states, tribal communities and children from scheduled tribes also face disadvantages at multiple levels due to various historical and geographical factors. Children from tribal communities often find school education irrelevant and foreign to their lives, both culturally and academically. This is very sad to read, but of course this is a fact because most of the times if the kids are exposed to things that are not culturally theirs, how will they be motivated to learn more? While several programmatic interventions to uplift children from tribal communities are currently in place and will continue to be pursued, special mechanisms need to be made to ensure that children belonging to tribal communities receive the benefits of these interventions. It's very important. This paragraph is taken from the NEP 2020. One more point from the same policy document, teacher education. So it's when we're talking about providing mother tongue education or language education to all, do we have enough teachers to teach these languages in school? It could be using, for instance, Dimasa as a medium of instruction or Biate as a medium of instruction. So it's important to concentrate in creating more manpower. Teacher education is vital in creating a pool of school teachers that will shape the next generation. Teachers must be grounded in Indian values, languages, knowledge, ethos, and traditions, including tribal traditions, while also being well versed in the latest advances in education pedagogy. This is on page number 42. There are many scholars who talk about linguistic human rights and revitalization. As rightly pointed out by Blair and Labokan, established policies need to be revisited and retaught as the situation of a particular language changes. I think that's what happened to our old three language formula, and now the NEP 2020 is an instance where these policies have already been revisited, retaught, and carefully drafted. I think there is a lot of scope for implementation of many things related to minority languages. Granting linguistic human rights can lead to revitalization, says Skutnab Kangas in 2018. But having language rights alone cannot guarantee language maintenance. This depends on the home language choice of the native speakers. Home language and school language, if they are different, how can the kids grow up with them? The transmission and getting official status of these languages could be easier if schools are established to teach such languages to the present generation. Language should be used in newspapers, signs and billboards on roads, official communication, mother tongue education, at least in primary level. Children should be encouraged to join special classes or courses to study their mother tongue and in their mother tongue wherever possible. So there are several strategies I would like to propose for revitalization, especially for mother tongue education, in other words, the minority language education. It is essential to print educational books in minority language, not just on literature and culture, but also about science and technology, history and geography, etc., and distribute the same free of cost at primary level to motivate the children to learn in their tongue. So science can be made very easy if it is written down in their own home language. Training should be given to minority language authors who could contribute to this task. Because there are a lot of writers in every community. If they are given appropriate training and provided with lexical resources and some tools for translation or terminology glosses or lexicons, I'm sure they would be able to come out with wonderful textbooks or supplementary books, which could also be translated into other cognate languages. The other strategies, what I would like to propose here is language technology planning, family language policy, and community-based language planning. Language technology planning will open doors for the language use in text editors, online dictionaries, cell phones, etc. But now you may ask me, how can this help if suppose the language does not have a script of its own? So that means first one has to develop an orthography, or in other words, develop writing systems, a script for the language, and then using that, people can build some text editors, because nowadays most of the people are using their smartphones or online social media websites and other networking to communicate among themselves, or also to talk about their language, or posting things in their language or on their language or about their language. We can build online dictionaries, and these could be talking dictionaries. Children would love to learn many words, new words, because imagine, suppose there is a Miso child growing up in, say, South India and exposed to South Indian languages. The schools definitely will not teach any of the Northeast languages here. So in such a case, his or her language learning is restricted only to the home environment. That is where this family language policy comes, where the family should make sure the grandparents transmit it to the parents and the parents transmit it to the children. There should be at least intergenerational transmission, at least involving 3 generations. Only then the language will be able to survive. So in such situations where people live out of their state or out of their region, online dictionaries, talking dictionaries may help them to learn more vocabulary in their own language. Also, it is important to build virtual keyboards with the help of the community, mobile apps for day-to-day communication in social media such as email, WhatsApp, Facebook, Twitter, etc. Construct websites for the linguistic families and subfamilies of the region and facilitate the upload of multimedia information about the linguistic, cultural, and other ethnic knowledge of the societies. Why are these things important? It is important, first of all, to create resources in our languages and then try to see how these resources could be used in schools or in other educational platforms. I already told you about talking dictionaries. One could also develop MOOCs and other online teaching materials for these languages in a bi or multilingual environment. One could create e-boards for the community folks to stay connected with each other. Make film and TV programs to take these languages to the rest of the world. This could be achieved with the help of fluent speakers, and all these could be used in families and communities to transmit their language across generations, which in turn could be used in school education, which is detrimental to linguistic and cultural diversity. I would like to conclude by saying that advocates of linguistic diversity should double their efforts to obtain legal measures at all levels supporting their languages. There is a need to find ways to implement the existing policies, including NEP 2020, for protecting, revitalizing, and promoting the entire range of minority languages, especially with regard to education. It is important to look into political, geographical, and economic factors, develop center state coordination with the tribes of the indigenous communities. Only then the linguistic diversity of Northeast India will be preserved and minority language education can take place in a meaningful manner. Thank you very much for your attention. We can have some discussions.
Yeah, thank you so much, Professor Umarani, for the wonderful presentation.
Yeah.
It was very detailed, but at the same time specific and also very articulate because I'm not from language. So sometimes for me it's very difficult to grasp the technicality of it, but it was very, I could relate to it. So thank you so much for that.
Okay.
And you touched so many issues like the demographics of language, with the focus of the Northeast, and also like defining and elaborating the concept of minority language, which many people are still confused about. And also like how in terms of the Northeast, like you're talking about the ethnic issues, or in other words, how the language and political developments in the states are somehow, inextricably intertwined. Like I could relate to that being from social science. And lastly, also, you touched about the pedagogic aspects of it. Thank you so much. Uh, Now, I think, since we have 6 papers here, so maybe just one or two questions, like 5 minutes for the chairperson, the lead speaker. So if there's anybody who wants to ask, please go on. See anybody? Yeah. Can't see anyone here, right? Why can't we see them?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, yeah. Melisa here wants to ask a question to you.
Okay.
Thank you, Professor Papaswamy. Really wonderful.
Yeah, just
Like our moderator had said, that is very detailed, and you touch upon the concept of what is a minority language. Being a sign linguist, I have a very simple question. Um,
yes.
can we put sign language under the context of minority language as well? Because we all know the
Yes.
existence of Indian
Yes.
Sign Language, but we do have many varieties operating across the country as well. And there are studies, of course, there's a dearth of studies, but still the studies shows lexical variation. And here in Northeast, confidently, I can say that we do have variations even within the Northeast alone. So how does, because sign language, a stigmatized kind of language because of the disabilities associated with it. So most often we don't hear them any discussion that it comes under the umbrella of minority language, because under that we do have the scheme like you have mentioned, Ektab, Shrestha, Bharat and all that. Does it come into it? How do we consider it minority language? Is it a minority language? What is it? Does it even come in within the sphere of linguistic field in India? Because this is not at all regarded extensively as a natural language. So
Yeah.
if we go by the schemes and policies of government, yes, I feel that it is in part of the minority language, but within that also there's a lot of conflict. So if you could kindly elaborate a little bit on that. Thank you.
Yeah, see, yeah, it's an interesting observation, Melissa, because it's of course very emotional to talk about Indian Sign Language and the people who are deprived of speaking, because we are talking about all these definitions you see, they are talking about speakers of something, speakers of a language. But unfortunately, like here, when we talk about ISL, we do different dialects of ISL, but a lot of study needs to be done on this and see like how are we. The only difference I see is, for example, when we talk about minority language education, uh, suppose we are talking about say Garo in Meghalaya, that would be a minority language in one sense, and or Biate in Meghalaya. But ISL, and you have schools like in we have exclusive schools for teaching ISL. Unlike the other minority language people, like a Garo person may be sitting with some other speakers of the dominant region. They are studying together. That is why I was talking about this so-called subtractive bilingualism. There or the reluctant bilingualism, whether I like or not, but because I am living there and I have to learn. And most of the times when children are too young, they do not even know all languages are beautiful and wonderful. The more the merrier. But that is a different concept of linguistic pluralism. It comes at a later stage, but not at the age of 3 or 4. We cannot ask the students. But I see that the difference is here we have in one school we will have multilingual kids, but in I also maybe that is it is possible their parents had come from different regions and they were studying in different schools, but the chances are a little different. I see these are two different issues, but in one sense they are also minority language, but unfortunately there aren't many provisions in our constitution to protect and so it is also the linguistic human right. If you speak of linguistic human rights, it is the basic right of everybody, and why not the ISL user? I cannot say speaker, so I'm using ISL user. So these are the different terminologies, and there are issues connected. But how are we going to? Are we going to adopt different methodologies for teaching these multilingual ISL users? Because might have come from say Delhi and living in Meghalaya now, or vice versa. From Meghalaya, they would have gone to Mumbai or Delhi. They are exposed to different types of sign languages. So these issues are still there. There is a lot more to explore in this area.
Yeah, all right. I was thinking, see, we have 6 papers with us. So whatever questions, whoever might want to ask questions, I think we can take that later on, like after all the papers are over.
Okay.
Now we have 6 papers here. So with the permission of the chairperson, I think we can start the paper presentations by the other presenters. Is it okay now?
Yes, that is great. Yeah.
Yes. So I was thinking we will leave 8 minutes for each presenter. So I think that is all right,
Okay.
isn't it? Yeah, okay. So we start with the first paper. It is by Sudarshana Fukan and Montebora, and the paper is, the topic is curriculum and teaching of minority language with special reference to Assam. So Montu and Sudarshana, Montebora and Sudarshana. Yes, Sudarshan. Okay. Please just stick to the objectives and your findings or your main, conclusion, whatever. Okay. And 7 minutes we have. So please go on.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sudarshana Fukkal. My co-author name is Montu Bora. We are going to present a paper on curriculum and teaching of minority language with special reference to Assam. So our objectives are to debate on curricular transformations to encourage minority language education at school. Second one is to deliberate on empowering teachers to make classroom more inclusive for children belonging to minority language. The paper is based on secondary data sources, and we had used internal sources to fulfill the objective stated in the paper. In discussing the subject matter, descriptive and analytical methods are used mainly. So, language is a crucial and defining aspect in the life of every individual. Not only a medium of effective communication, it is a harbor of culture and system of knowledge. Without active language maintenance, language shift is sort of inevitable in many contexts. And without conscious maintenance, minority language can and possibly will disappear in as few as 3 generations. So, it is very important to maintain minority languages. So, how to maintain minority language? We have mentioned here some different kind of support of maintaining a minority language. First one is the use of minority language in education. Minority language speaker in Assam should adopt multiple strategies, like using minority language at home, the dominant language at school, and for other public domains. These languages have a stable cultural and linguistic base elsewhere that provides more constant support for their retention. For example, bilingual education programs using or teaching the minority language at school. Second one is support by the law and administration. Article 347, the Constitution, referring the minority language in administration, endorsed the President with the power to direct in appropriate cases the minority language should be officially recognized for use of administration throughout a state. For example, the right to use the language in court, the House of Assembly, in dealing with government officials, etc. The use of the language in places of worship. If the minority language is considered an important symbol of minority group's identity, the language is likely to be maintained longer. For example, TV programs, radio programs, newspaper, and magazines. Developing applications, mobile apps in the languages. With the technical advancement, mobile apps and software has become a part of our daily life. Developing an app like Duolingo, which helps in learning foreign language, can also help in terms of learning the minority language. Developing such apps can help the learner to access and learn the language and meaning whenever and wherever we want. For example, like Duolingo app, which help in learning foreign languages, and Google Translator as app by Google used in translate a language. Now moving on, educational effect in maintaining minority language. Usually, educational process covers aim of education, method of teaching, role of teacher, discipline. So we have got to enhance of this in our educational field to maintain minority language. Curriculum transformation to encourage minority language education at school. This is our first objective. Many minority language communities live in remote and inaccessible regions of the state. It is often the case and that schooling in any form is unavailable. The right to education, which is in practice still deny the children in such areas. To develop a specific curriculum to encourage minority language education at school, it can identify key highlights, some of the ways in which Assam will be achieved equally between minority and majority population through the implementation of the right to education and the protection of language. The state institutions and legal bodies should take all necessary measures to make education for minorities equally accessible, attainable, and reasonable, and give every minority the right to use, care for, and pass on their own language. So we have to develop a specific curriculum for minority language. According to the need of each minority language should be the language of instruction in preschool and elementary school, while the majority language would be taught as its own subject. Be represented in all sustainable part of the secondary education curriculum. Now moving on, our second objectives, that is empowering teacher to make classroom more inclusive for children belonging to minority language. It is very important to empowering teacher to
Yeah, go to your conclusion, your main findings, your conclusions.
So to develop a specific curriculum and to encourage minority language education at school, it can identify and highlight some of the ways in which Assam will be achieve quality between minority and majority population through the implementation of right to education and the protection of language. The state institutions and legal bodies ought to take all necessary measures to form education for minority equalities. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, thank you so much, Sudarshana. I just want to mention here that Sudarshana and Montu, they were students. They have just recently finished their course, and I really appreciate our, young students and teachers to be taking this initiative. Well done, Sudarshana.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, so we have our next paper now by T. Surjit Singh. The topic is Minority Language as a Pedagogical Medium, Enabling Development from Within to Expand Functional Domains. Sir, please start, sir. 8 minutes. Sir, we cannot hear you. So you can remove the video, then maybe you will be audible because we are not able to hear you. Okay, what is happening?
No, it's still not audible.
Yes, yeah, we can hear you now.
Okay, is it audible now?
Yes, now it's
Am I audible now? I was thinking using a slide, but I'm not very sure whether the system will permit me to do it. If I cannot use the slide, then I will just orally. I'm unable to. Where is the slide? Okay. Looks like I have some technical problem. Well, I will present it without a slide. Is it audible with the video on? Otherwise, I have to off my video. Am I audible? My voice now? Hello?
Yes,
Am
yes,
I
you're audible now. Yes, sir. Yes.
Hello? Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, particularly Professor Uma Pupuswamy, as wonderful introductions. And I will come to my paper. This paper is the output of my our long work in particularly in the in rural Khasi Hills in Meghalaya, attempting to give free education to the dropout children, which we normally call them push-out children. And by now we have already concretized our approach, but this perhaps is an attempt to provide, to share with all of you in an acceptable format in the academic forum. Let me start it with our understanding about the minority language. Minority language as such is in fact a confused term. It is not well defined in the constitution, and it's normally we believe that those languages which are not on scheduled list, they are minority languages. Not only minority language, all languages, but more in case of the minority language, we need constitutional protection. But the constitutional protection, however perfect, it can never be adequate to protect the language as such. And one of the important issue here is that standard language, both in the scheduled list and the non-scheduled list, they are not necessarily the mother tongue. And the medium of instruction used in the school is not necessarily the medium of learning and the education. So when we talk about the medium of instruction, the medium of instruction can be even in the regional language or in the foreign language. But if we create a situation where the learning and the education is possible in their mother tongue, such a possibility will definitely help to expand the functional domain of the minority languages. We would like just to say that mother tongue in case of Khasi Hills is known as Katin Snong. And the same is true in Garo Hill, same is true in different places. As I said just now, mother tongue is not necessarily the standard version. A mother tongue is in fact is the carrier of the history, it is the identity of the people, and the culture is embedded in that mother tongue. And it is also the repository of the knowledge of work and the knowledge of life, knowledge of tradition and the history of that particular set of the people. And this particular set of the people is necessarily to be a community. And these particular people, at least in their domain of home, society, local market, churches, and local function, still the mother tongue is the medium in which they engage in all these events. And function of world of work, both at home and outside, is definitely for in this mother tongue. And it is organic, it is class specific, it is also local specific, and it is also gender specific, various type of the lexicons. I would like just to further read. If we look to the mother tongue, there is a wrong perspective which has been historically built up, that many a time there is a dichotomy between the spoken word and the written word. The spoken word is the local language, so-called Katin Snong in Khasi Hills, and then they write it in the standard version. So there is a gap between what they think and what they are allowed to write it. And the mother tongue, normally people believe that mother tongue is not a language that is fit for higher knowledge. It cannot be used for subjects like physics, chemistry, biology, mathematics. And many a time people also believe that mother tongue has very less utility. It cannot be used in the other places. It doesn't have so much economic values. And it is also believed that the standard version is in fact a more refined and it is a more superior set of the languages in compare with the non-standard local languages. But in fact, mother tongue has potential to transform the society. Mother tongue has the potential to hold back the children in the school. And the mother tongue has the capacity to advance critical thinking. And the mother tongue has the potential to facilitate to learn multiple languages. And this positive attribute of the mother tongue is not necessarily with the standard version of the language. If we look into the mother tongue, and the school language, this is quite unfortunate that we all the time believe that the standard version or regional language or Hindi or English are the school languages, and the mother tongue is the language at home and in society. We believe that mother tongue is something that cannot be educationally useful. But in fact, the mother tongue can help the child to think and act. The school language cannot and must not use it for engaging with children for thinking and for engaging them in collective action. The mother tongue, children express it naturally and spontaneously, and this capacity to express spontaneously and naturally is not with the school language as of today. The basic interpersonal communication skill, in short, we call it BICS, is very much with the mother tongue. And this basic interpersonal communication skill is not with the school language. The school language cannot help the child to advance to cognitively advanced language proficiency, whereas the mother tongue is necessarily the medium to advance children from the basic interpersonal communication skill to the cognitively advanced language proficiency. The mother tongue immediately connects the children with the immediate environment. And school language immediately disconnect them with their immediate environment. And in mother tongue, the knowledge is departitioned and internalized. Whereas in school language, the knowledge is partitioned, it is discretized and dichotomized. And in case of the mother tongue, a motivation comes from cognition. In case of the school language, the motivation comes from the capacity to score and the capacity to succeed in competition. There is an urgent need for us to restore the dignity of the mother tongue.
Conclusion, please.
I'll just do it as fast as possible. And there is a need for us to reinforce the identity of the mother tongue. And there is a need for us to stop shifting of the mother tongue towards the English and the regional languages. There is also a need for us to facilitate learning other languages instead of shifting to other languages. And for this, we need a paradigm shift. Now, perhaps this is the most important part of the paper, so at least give me 1 minute. We proposed, and we have been practicing this, we proposed 6 paradigm shifts in using mother tongue in the school. In school, we have to build up an expanded curriculum wherein the curriculum made by the state boards are also a subset of it. And this expanded curriculum must include at least the curriculum available in the real-time living society. We pick it up 6 pedagogical approach. The first one is called CCC, content, concept, and a context. The context must be necessarily the existing society. The content can be picked it up from the present board, and with using the content and the content, we have to build up the concept. So here, learning of English is necessarily to be through mother tongue, and the teaching of science and mathematics, believing that these two subjects engage cognitively, it is to be an approach of learning language through mother tongue. Science and mathematics is to be taught as if we are teaching them a new language, basically to advance from basic interpersonal communication skills towards the cognitively advanced language proficiency. For learning purposes, the home, the society, the market, the forest, everything available around the child must be the resources. And there must be definitely a continuity between home to school to home, and the home to school continuity is very much a part of this approach. And lastly, what must be the object? To cognize for learning knowledges and to generate knowledges. Now, in this, we built it up 2 sets of the H. One is called first triple H, the second one is called second triple H. The first triple H is the continuation of the Gandhian notion of the head, hand, and heart. But the second one is a construction which we borrowed it from Khasi Akor, Khasi tradition, Khasi value system. The health, the happiness, and the hope. Wherever there is incline, wherever there is wherever there is Zinkerman. Wherever there is a health, and there is possibility to generate health, possibility to generate happiness, possibility to generate hope, then that is what we call medium for engaging in learning. And such an engagement is possible only through the language where children and the society engage amongst themselves to generate and to sustain the society. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. So we move to the next speaker now, Biswajit Samada. Yes, Biswajit. The topic is importance of language issues and linguistic rights in the society and education system. Yes, Biswajit Samada, you should start, and please stick to we have just 8 minutes, okay? Yeah, please
Thank
go
you,
on.
madam. Thank you, madam, for giving me such a good opportunity to express myself. Thank you, chairperson of this session. I just take a few seconds to present my slide. May I audible?
Yes, you're audible.
Oh,
Yes, go on.
okay. Madam, the slide is visible.
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Thank you.
yeah, it is visible.
Oh, thank you.
Yes, go on. Please go on,
Now,
yes.
okay, fine. Myself, Vishwajit Samadar from Government College of Education, Banipur, West Bengal. Today, my topic is importance of language issue and linguistic rights in the society and education system. Uh, Now we are in 21st century and our society claims that we are advanced and civilized and our constitution always for equity and equality on every aspect. But it's also true, a problem surrounding language issue and its rights are still continuing. At present, it is an identified question to maintain our integration and togetherness. Also, an alarming problem for linguistic minorities group. The present study attempts to investigate the importance of language issue and linguistic rights in the society and the education system. I know there is a lack of time. I'm not going to in detail, so I skip to the objectives of my study is the study attempt to address the present scenario and all the and the importance of language issue and linguistic rights in human life, especially in minority groups and education system, to highlight the necessity of mother tongue in teaching learning process. The second one is to build up societal awareness among all stakeholders for taking their responsibility in protecting the linguistic rights to achieve the goal of education to all and inclusive society. The last one is to identify the challenges to protect linguistic rights and suggest some possible solution for overcome the problems. Language, we know the language is an amazing gift of God and more than a means of communication. Language makes man fully human beings. Yes, language distinguishes human from other animal species because we have the ability to motive, and it is true that we cannot motive without language. I'm not too going detail. Uh, Concept of minority, we know the minority language is that spoken by a small number of population over a particular geopolitical area. And the basic issue of linguistic rights indicates the right of individual to use their mother tongue with other members of their society. There are different dimensions of linguistic rights. Okay. Next is linguistic rights in India and necessity and importance. We know the diversity in terms of ethnicity, race, religious, caste, culture, and language is most important feature of our country. This is mostly because of this country was captured and ruled by the different empires in different times. A long historical ups and downs and social changes influence to the diversity in India. In India, there are approximately 22 civil languages recognized by the Constitution and more than 1652 mother tongues and over 300 dialects. in a multilingual society like India, many languages are used in everyday individual life. Most of the cases, it's found that one language may be preferred in domestic rituals and other in academic purpose, and another one is may be used in administrative or legal use. There are a lot of important issues I am not going to detail. Now, the idea of using mother tongue as a medium of instruction in elementary level of education is not a concept to the Indian education policy framework, but it is the fact that it has not achieved to its goal till date because there are various issues behind it. There are four issues. Um, uh, Issues from social context, issues from globalization and initialization, issues from political and administrative perception, issues from infrastructural facilities, and lack of awareness from minorities. Issues from social context. In India, there are many people who speak in many different languages. Minorities, in terms of language, most of them are traditionally spoken in limited area, or particularly geopolitical area. In India, in our country, social context, it is observed that majorities are generally holding a dominating position in terms of social culture and economic perception than minorities. On the other hand, it is very unfortunate but fact an important psychological trait that majorities have a tendency to view all language as a whole more favorable than other languages. As a result, minority languages have traditionally been ignored by the speakers of majority language. They are segregated from the mainstream at the same time. Um, at the same time, they are excluded from the society. This kind of excluding and segregation process and discrimination attitude affects dishonor to the minorities. Issues from globalization and Englishization. Today, in the era of globalization, it is fact that English is a global language, has a special position in the worldwide. English is generally held in high prestige in not even Indian society but also in the world society. Now, the maximum parents wants their child to learn English. They believe the present generation may be difficulties in getting job in the globalized world if they do not learn through the English medium. English as a language of international communication has created an increase in social pressure to learn this language for speakers from minority language, even for those who do not live in English speaking. Issues from political and administrative factor. We know the diversity in terms of language is the most characteristic state in India. This is mostly because India long dated historical ups and downs, develops various ethics, racial, color, social, cultural, and religious groups. The relation among those aspects with common people is very complex. This complexity increases the diversity in communication styles, way, and method in Indian society. This also makes a language planning more difficult, unstable, and very controversial issue in India. We know in Indian politics, it is not rarely seen that the language is not for
Sir, can you
communication
start
but for.
writing up, please?
Okay,
Please,
okay, okay,
conclusion.
okay,
Yeah.
okay, okay, okay. Uh, uh, I'm now I am. This is I
It's
conclude
already
my topic.
yeah, sorry.
Okay. Language is essential aspects we know, and the following suggestion may be encouraged. At present, every individual and all stakeholders in education system should be aware for the importance of the linguistic rights and take responsibility for ensuring and protecting this. In this ground, government should take strict measures to provide advice, guidance, counseling, and assistance to the people. Those are the particular needs. If all of us individually makes a contribution to remove discrimination attitude and develop faith and respect to the minority language, it would be a significant effect. Uh, it is very significant to give more emphasis on mother tongue based instruction in the elementary level teaching learning process and curriculum framework. Therefore, reforms and modification of curriculum structure are important. Effective training program for development of skilled and trained teachers on this platform. Establishment more schools with the tribal language as a medium of instruction. Standard language scripts, technological interventions to serve as aid, and the availability of translating enjoyable books into local languages as requirement is also essential. And the last one, it is also very important to develop and initiate nationally an awareness campaigning program by the authority, because minority should aware of and stand up for their rights. A positive attitude towards linguistic rights can develop within the citizen, which directly affects their mentality and course of action. This will be the significant steps for the benefits of tribal community in terms of their emotional, educational, and socio-cultural development as a whole. These steps is not only reduce the linguistic rights.
I think that's because we've gone way beyond time. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
So, yes, thank you for your presentation. So now we have the next presenter, please. Uh, Gurudeshwar Das. Gurudeshwar Das. The
Hello.
have you there? Yes, yes. The topic is effectiveness of TLM in Munda language for developing language skills of MELE students in Sundargarh district, Odisha. Yes,
Hello.
please, yes, and we have 8 minutes. Please start.
Am I audible? Am I audible, madam? Respected Chairperson, Professor Uma Papusamy, and all dignitaries. Hello. Is it audible, ma'am?
Yes, yes, you're very
yes.
yes, please go on. Yes. Yes, sir, please go on. Yes.
Hello.
Yeah, please go on, please.
Is my screen is visible? Hello.
Yes, it is.
My topic is effectiveness of TLM in Munda language for developing language skills of MLE Munda students in Sundargarh district, Odisha. I am Gaurudeshwar Das, teacher educator, DIT Sundargarh, Odisha. This topic is based on primary data that have been done in our district. So now I am going to present my results. Different committee and commissions give importance on mother tongue based education. The reason is as follows: it lays solid foundation for learning. It facilitates second language as well as academic subjects. It improves learning outcomes as it promotes dialogue and interaction between teacher and learner. It improves understanding and creativity as there is no need of rote memorization. It helps learner to understand his culture. The the research that we conducted in Sundargarh districts is based on MLE Munda language. There are 5 schools, there are 5 blocks, and in these blocks there are 42 schools, and 142 MLE Sikha Sayaks are continuing their they are teaching the students. The agency is TPC Sundargarh under Sarva Shiksha Vision. Our diet prepares textbook and teachers training modules for this program. The textbook and TLM are alphabet charts and books, number charts and books, theme-based big and small book, bilingual textbook for class 1, 2, and 3. Munda Varnamala Bahi, which is meant for class 1, Mesavani Pothi, this is meant for class hidden jagar or Bhasha Shiksha, this is meant for class 3 students. Similarly, picture dictionary, grammar books are also prepared and used in this program. Basically, two approaches are going on in this process. That is BICS, Basic Interpersonal Communication Skills. It is learned through experiential knowledge in social context. CALPS or CAPS, Cognitive Academic Language Proficiency Skill. It aims to teach reading, writing, and numeracy. The objective of the study is as follows: to find out effectiveness of TLM in achieving learning achievement of Munda students in language, to assess difference between learning achievement of MLE and non-MLE Munda students. Basically, a survey method is adopted in this research work. Purposive sampling technique was used to collect two MLE schools and one non-MLE schools, but where there were Munda students within same geographical and cultural area. So total 10 MLE and 5 non-MLE schools was the sample. Sample class and students, all students of class 1, that is 80 students, class 2, 100 students, and class 3, 132 students were taken for the study. Different tools that is used in this program was achievement test questionnaire. Broad areas of achievement test for class 1. It consists of identification of letters, construction of word using appropriate letters, jumble word, writing of word for giving picture, oral answer of a simple general questions, recitation of poem, storytelling, reading word from flashcard. Similarly, for class 2, broad areas of achievement test are as follows: filling up blanks with words having composite letters, writing a word having composite letters for a given picture, jumble words, use of phola, construction of word from grid, writing sentence for a given picture, oral answer of test-based questions, recitation of a poem or storytelling, reading a passage. Similarly, for class 3, broad areas of achievement test are writing answer of paragraph-based questions, Gadyarupa and Padyarupa, that is prose and poetry form, meaning of words, synonyms, construction of sentence using given words, creative writings, recitation of a poem with action, reading paragraphs, oral answer to text-based questions. The achievement, competency-wise achievement of class 1 students is as follow. In identification of letters, it was 95.2% for MLE, and for non-MLE students, it is 90%. Formation of a word using appropriate letter, it is 92.8% for MLE and 75.8% for non-MLE. Similarly, in storytelling, it was 45% for MLE and 89.5% for non-MLE. Reading words, reading words from the flashcard, it is 67.2% for MLE. This is given the overall achievement of.
Please come to your unmute. Yeah, please come to your your conclusion because otherwise we'll be running out of time. Please.
Oh, okay, madam. Major finding that achievements of a Munda students reading in MLE schools is better than that of a Munda students reading in general school. MLE students of class 1 achieved listening, speaking, reading, writing skills as per their prescribed syllabus. MLE students of class 2 achieved listening, speaking, reading, writing skills, but in higher order questions, achievement was not satisfactory. In case of a creative writing, achievement of both groups was not satisfactory. Munda students reading in a non-MLE school did not open up as they were unable to speak Odia. Munda students have less interest in general Odia textbook. In non-Middle schools, Munda students were neglected. Similarly, my conclusions and suggestions are there should be more activity-based exercise at the end of each chapter in MLE books. There should be more work on creative writings. Teachers should be oriented regarding proper use of TLM. Odia section of MLE books should be at par with general Odia textbook. Textbooks and supplementary teaching learning materials should be reviewed from time to time. There should be sufficient and adequate TLM for Munda students reading in non-MLE schools. Special care should be given to Munda students reading in general schools. Thank you, ma'am.
So much. Now we have two papers left. And I'll just advise that, see, if it's a research paper, please go straight to your objectives, methodology, and your findings. And if it's a theoretical paper, then you can just come up, point to main arguments and conclude on that, okay? So now we have a next paper, Dripta Piplai, yes? Yes, okay.
Am I audible?
And the topic is link language as a teaching tool. So we have 8 minutes. Please start. Yes.
Yeah, I don't know whether I'm visible or not, but I think I'm audible.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So it's a theoretical paper and I do not have a PPT. I have mailed a handout which you can distribute later. So I'll just start with the presentation. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. I'm Dripta from Indian Institute of Technology, Kharagpur, and I'll be talking about linking language as a tool in classroom. So we are talking about, a number of speakers talked about the idea of medium of instruction, and I am trying to analyze this idea, medium of instruction, and trying to understand the analysis for suggesting a set of measures which can be taken for multilingual classrooms. So we are familiar with the idea of medium of instruction, and we know and we often say that the medium of instruction is the regional standard. It's not the mother tongue of the children, as it's already mentioned by some speakers before me. So I'm trying to problematize this idea of medium of instruction and asking you to think about when we, the term medium of instruction. So when we say medium of instruction, do we consider all the different tasks that we conduct inside a classroom? So for example, when a classroom which is highly multilingual in nature, the teacher explains the textbook, do we consider the language of the explanation as the medium of instruction? So medium of instruction is a generic term where we refer to the textbook language. And we often come across with instances where the language of explanation, the language through which the teacher explains the textbook, is a different language. And the language of instruction, small instruction given to the students, is also a different language, not the language that is there in the textbook. So that is why I'm trying to understand the term medium of instruction in a different way. So regional standard, which is a medium of instruction for most of the schools, well, I'm excluding the private and public English medium schools in rural areas. And I'm primarily talking about multilingual rural schools, which are government schools. And I think many of you who are present here are talking about such schools. So when we think about several policy documents who recommend the use of mother tongue in the first 2 years of schooling, for example, the National Curriculum Framework by NCERT 2005 talks about the fact very clearly that the first 2 years of children's schooling should be done in the mother tongue. So if we think about the linguistic human rights issues associated with the suggestion given by several policy documents, we can expand this idea. So what do I mean by expanding this idea? So when we say that use the children's mother tongue, we can consider the fact that the mother tongue is always not a language. The mother tongue is not something which is not mixed. So a mother tongue or mother tongues can be considered as multilingual. In other words, multilinguality is embedded in the idea of mother tongue. So if you are considering different rural schools and thinking about any multilingual classroom, you can understand what I'm trying to say. So there are several languages which are part of each child's linguistic repertoire. So if you want to try to analyze this further, let me give an example from West Bengal where I'm located. So this is not an example from West Bengal. This is a common phenomena for different classrooms in India. So we have three different layers in the classroom. So for if you consider one child's language use, there are three different layers. In one layer, there is essentially the home language or home languages. So if you can later check the handout, it is also mentioned there. In the second layer, there is the lingua franca or the linked language, which is spoken by children of different communities in a region, which is a common language. So, for example, from IIT Kharagpur, we are working on a similar issue in a project where we are looking at Jalpaiguri district in the northern part of West Bengal and Jhargram district in the southwestern part of West Bengal, which is very close to our campus. And we are trying to understand and analyze the lingua franca and also trying to understand the potential of using that in the classroom. So lingua franca or the linked language, which is the common language for different communities, which is often used in the market. So it is the second layer. And this is the textbook language that I'm referring to, which is the medium of instruction. So there are these three layers are present in different areas. And this is not only in case of other country, it has been observed that in other countries also the similar structure is present. So it is theoretically known as syntactic variation, where we can, if we analyze the children's syntax, we can analyze the children's words used, these are clearly projecting three different variants. So these three layers are present. So when I'm suggesting that the linked language can be used for use in classroom, so what do I actually mean by that? So what I'm trying to suggest through this paper is that the linked language can be used for several purposes. The linked language can be used as a medium of instruction, sense of explanation. So I'm talking about explaining the textbook. So it is a common language which is accessible by different children. It is a common language which is often known by the teacher, and it is possible to explain the textbook language which is written in the regional standard or several regional standards. It is possible to explain that using that linked language, and it is often done in different classrooms, in different classrooms of different areas. So this is a point that I would like to mention. And also the linked language can be used as a language for remedial classrooms, maybe a Sunday class, a Friday class, which is where we talk about remedial class, different types of designs. So the linked language can be used for the remedial classroom, and it can also be used as the language for preparing some additional TLM. So why am I saying additional TLM? Because we have TLMs designed in different languages, and TLMs in the regional standards are often available for classroom use. So if we prepare some additional TLMs in the linked language, firstly, it can be accessed.
Ma'am, please come to your conclusion.
Yeah, sure. I'm almost done. So it is possible to access by different children from different speech communities, and it is also possible to use by teachers of different areas. So it will be also user friendly and easily it can be made easily available to people. So what I'm trying to suggest here is, as the multilingual pedagogy in modern day is focusing on hybrid language use, so countries like Canada and UK are constantly talking about multilingual pedagogies and hybrid language use. So this is what we can suggest in Indian context, where the hybrid language or the lingua franca can be used. And it is said that the lingua franca is often a modified version of the regional standard, which is spoken by the powerful people. So I've also given the reference in the handout. So it is the modified version of the regional language. So the structure is very much similar with the regional language. So it is also easily accessible by people. And the suggestion is to develop materials in the language which will be both accessible and possible to manage. The administrative part will be easier to manage. So I would like to finish, and if you have any questions later, thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. So now we have the last paper by Manoranjan Debarma and Subir Debarma. Yes?
Yeah. Yes, ma'am. Can you hear me?
So, yes, I can hear. So the topic here is Kokborok language education, approaches in language, culture, and society. So, sir, yes, please go on, and you have 8 minutes. Yeah, please start, sir.
Okay. Okay. Ma'am. Uh, Hi, my name is Subir Devarma, and I'm going to present on Cockbrook language education and approach in language, culture, and society. So, history background of Cockbrook language. Cockbrook is a Tibeto-Burman language of the Bodo subgroup, mainly spoken in northeastern state of Tripura, some parts of Assam, Mizoram, and Bangladesh, mainly in Chittagong hill tracts. According to 2011 census, it has a population of Cockbrook speaker are 9 lakhs 7,900. Cockbrook is an official language of Tripura along with a Bengali language. In the late 1900, after the emergence of the Bengali language, which came into the field of art, literature, culture, religion, economic, society, it became a dominion and a minority, and Cockbrook became a minority language. So after the merger agreement in 1947, there was an agreement with the Indian government that the culture of Tripura and the Cockbrook language will be preserved and seen by the government, but due to the political interference, these were never seen, and it has been still pending and untouched. So here the first issue is issues of language and challenge of Cockbrook alphabet. Cockbrook Cockbrook has raises many questions. There is no proper evidence that it's it belongs to a Tibeto-Burman family, but it is based on a tonal. Since then, language family has adopted their own ways of writing. It also implemented. It follows the same steps, but how to implement it, convince the community to adopt it. From the 19th century onwards, many movement began and there has been done, but none of that succeeded. It is accepted by the Cockbrook speaking people because no one has the evicted means accepted the patterns being followed the same practice by the Cockbrook speaker, and so they have developed their own script and which are not being evidently published. So during the 2000, the, there was a demand for Roman script, and people of the Cockbrook speaking community has raised the question to accept the Cockbrook means Roman script. Secondly, the culture and tradition of Cockbrook speaking people. The diversity of Tripura has its own unique of expressing as we belong to a Jum cultivation, surrounded by Jum cultivation, and from generations we perform through art and literature. and some play. And we have our own traditional background, which is similar to the other northeastern state. However, Tripura state is Tripura state is surrounded by Bangladesh in three parts. According to the 2000 census, Bengali represent almost 70% population, and Tripuri population compressed to 30%. There are 250 design of the traditional attire which are being lost in today's, and there has been no evidence being followed. So the Tripura, so with the emergence of the Western culture, people are forgetting their own traditional and cultural effects came to influence Tripura culture now. We're only in weddings and cultural program. However, education institute encouraged to indulge oneself to be true to its own culture and promoting the handloom industries along with the commercial sector, hence accelerating the economic, culture, and society harmony in state. Uh, language. Next point is language learning and teaching in Kogborok. The teaching and learning of Kogborok language has begun from the early 1900s under the Janasikhya Samiti, where the demand teaching in Kogborok movement has begun, but with one condition, that the teaching of Kogborok will be in Bengali script, and we agreed to it. From from that day onwards, the public organization went on to villages and started to teach Kogborok as a night school, and some learned Kogborok terms like rhyming. Uh, After some learn while cooking rice with the help of a spoon and rice water scratching in the mud, like that some learn, and then the crisis came after the merger agreement, because it has been implemented and ignored. So during the 1947, Tripura was put in the C category district, and Kokborok was ignored. But from 1960s onward, the movement began, and government also gave attention when they had interested in. Since then, dur- during then came the Indo-Chinese War, and there was a food crisis for Tripura. And in 1970s, when people started to raise question, then the liberation of Bangladesh start, and there are also again Kokborok was ignored. So like that, the year 2000 arrived, and the movement for Roman script arise, and many private organizations also work on Kokborok, and they're implementing Kokborok in colleges and school and universities, and the writers also arise and did some book fair. And from 2009 onwards till
Sir, please
today.
start. Please go to your conclusion, please, sir.
Okay. I'm in conclusion, ma'am. So to Kokborok language has suffered from the last 100 years, and it became a majority languages, and it dominated by the majority language by Bengali, and it became a minority. So according to the now the after the implementation of the national education policy, there has been a bonus, prolong and struggle step forward language development from birth of extinction to being one of the major language new education policy, will playing a fundamental role in the prosperity of Kokborok. Thank you. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much. Now we have completed all our papers, and I request our chairperson, Professor Umarani, to, ma'am, can you hear me? Hello, ma'am, you can hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes. I request our chairperson, Professor Umarani, to please give a brief observation on the papers we had. Please, ma'am. Yes.
Yes, yeah, it was an interesting session. I congratulate all the presenters. It is very nice to be with the Northeast people and talk and listen to such things. The first paper was by Sudarshana Pukan and Montu Bora on curriculum and teaching of minority language with special reference to Assam. It was nice that the presenters highlighted about the right to education in the Assamese context. Maybe if there are any questions, we can take about it. The second paper was by Mr. Tokholm. It was basically on based on a study in East Khasi Hills. He wanted to say that mother tongue is not the standard version and there is always a spoken versus written dichotomy. He highlighted the positive attributes of mother tongue and emphasized the need for a paradigm shift in using mother tongue in school, and concluded saying that there should be continuity from home language to school language. The third paper was by Mr. Samadar, who talked about the issues and challenges involved in the linguistic rights, especially when it comes to education system. And he also talked about the need for the change in the reforms in the curriculum for teaching in mother tongue. The next paper was by Mr. Das. It was an experimental study for developing language skills to test the effectiveness of TLM in Munda students in Odisha. Uh, Dripta Pillai talked about language as a teaching tool. She discussed some concepts and issues related to the concept of mother tongue as a medium of instruction. She suggested that link language could be used for explanations in the classroom, to design additional TLM, and the link language, what is normally used in the classrooms, is perhaps a modified version of the regional language in schools, and talked about some hybrid models for effective teaching of subjects using mother tongue. The Deb Burma's the last paper was on Kokborok language education, highlighted the different approaches in language, culture, and society. All these papers are connected and interesting. Mostly, we are emphasizing on the use of minority language or mother tongue in education, whether it is bilingual or multilingual. Most of the times, we are talking about school education, effective learning, and people connected it with cognitive development. It is important for children to learn science or other subjects in the initial days using in their mother tongue. The points to ponder, or in other words, the take-home message of this session is we need to work towards the enrichment of bilingual or multilingual education in the minority language scenario. It's necessary to also develop some tools for language maintenance, especially in the multilingual and multicultural educational scenario. Use mother tongue to teach science, maths, social concepts, social science, and other concepts. Last but not least, it is important to also train teachers. It is important to bring effective teachers in the school situation. So we need more support, not only from government, but even from institutions like NCERT and other organizations involved in order to implement the NEP 2020, and also to see that the so-called inclusiveness, education for all, is not just a dream, but should become a reality. I now open this session for brief questions, if any, from the audience.
Yes. Any questions? Please go on. Yes.
Can I ask a question?
Oh, definitely. Yes, of course.
Am I audible? Yeah. I'm very keen to to listen from Professor Pushwami regarding the definition of the mother tongue. In our context, how do we define mother tongue? In fact, in the morning, Professor Ramkant Agnihotri was saying that there is nothing called mother tongue. But in the meantime, if we don't use the word mother tongue, then what else we supposed to use it? It's quite confusing.
See, it's indeed a very controversial term because I too do not subscribe to the term mother tongue because I myself am an example of that. If someone asks me what's my mother tongue, it's very difficult to say. I prefer to use the term native tongue because I'm a native speaker of Tamil, but the concept of mother tongue, if you say, is the language you have learned initially, or the more familiar you are and more proficient, and basically if you're competent and proficient in a language, then Tamil is my mother tongue if I have to use that definition. But Tamil is basically my native tongue, and I prefer to use native tongue as another term because the language spoken by my parents and I learned at home. So though I'm not a native speaker of Telugu, I am a genitive, it's my genitive tongue. So these concepts are a little bit difficult to describe, but main thing is in what language you have enough competency and proficiency. That is the language which you are going to use as a native language. Mostly what happens is you can use that as mother tongue. There are confusing definitions. That's why I think you are asking this.
Yes. Thank you.
Any other question? To any of the presenters?
I have one more question, if you permit me. I would like just to raise this question to Professor Pushwami. Can I raise one more question?
Yes, please.
In your presentation, you mentioned about the relationship between the ethnic assertion and the language demand, particularly in the Northeast. Will it be a wise policy for any ethnic group to assert their language to be superior compared with other languages and attempting to create political and legislative space to maintain dominancy? Or if this is not the right approach, then what will be the right approach for promoting their languages?
Okay, see, as a linguist, I wouldn't say one language is superior to another, right? We have, all of us are proud of our own languages. One should have pride in own language and take the necessary steps to promote it, to preserve it, and conserve it for all practical purposes. But the attitude, the main thing is we should develop positive attitudes towards our language and see that it is used in various domains. Like that's why I was talking about a new concept called family language policy. So it is important that the home language or the native language is practiced at home and practiced at home in different walks of life. Like not just speaking a little, but trying to understand and explaining things related to your society and culture in your own language. So that is one thing, family language policy. And slowly these associations should, of course, bring as many printed materials as possible. Because that is one thing, most of the time, there are many languages which are not written down. So then it is important to write down those languages, see that the oral traditions, which are treasure houses of knowledge, are being shared with everybody. And only then you can, once you promote your language, you're promoting your culture as well, because language and culture are interrelated. When we do it, automatically we have to go a long way to convince whether it is the state or the central government to introduce some changes in order to many people in the Northeast are asking for the scheduled status, you know that. So there are different group languages or mother tongues to be declared as one of the scheduled languages. But there are so many issues involved there: social, political, linguistic, cultural. So it's a long way to go, but one should have a positive attitude in promoting one's own language.
Thank you.
Is there any other question like also to for the presenters here? Anyone want to raise any questions for any of our presenters here? Yes. Okay, there's one question one of our JPF here wants to ask, and it's directed to the chairperson. Yes.
Thank you, ma'am. First of all, thank you to Madam Moderator and Principal Sir for allowing me to raise a question. That is my question directly to Professor Uma Papuswamy that, ma'am, you told that message of the session is to train teachers for a multilingual setup. So so myself being a B.Ed student as I've completed a B.Ed, so I find there is a very less scope in training the pre-service teachers because the course is only for 2 years and I don't know about in-service and B.Ed special in that mainly focus is on to handle the special abled children. So I find very less scope in this to train teachers in multiple language setup. So how would you address this one, ma'am, please?
You see, like I work in Central Institute of Indian Languages. We have regional language centers. 7 regional language centers are established across the country. Okay, they are in 7 different parts, like NRLC, Northern Regional Language Center in Punjab, in Patiala, SRLC in Mysore, ERLC in Bhubaneswar, WRLC in Pune. Then we have UTRCs in Lucknow, Solan, and so we have like an NERLC in Guwahati, because that is near to Shillong, of course. So here we train teachers to teach or learn scheduled languages. Now I think we are still thinking about bringing in reforms in our own centers too, because after this NEP 2020 is out, we are now thinking, why can't we also impart training in other languages, not just the scheduled languages. For example, the Guwahati Center can provide training in Garo, Biate, Kasi, or say Mizo, Pado, Paite, etc. It is not the B.Ed program. I'm talking about teacher training or teacher education. In other educational institutions, we give 10-month diploma programs. One could do different styles. Maybe you can have 6-month courses or crash courses, because depends on the level of learning. For L1 learner, short courses, L2 learners or L3 learners. So we can, in other words, it is important to create a pool of teachers, because without teachers competent in these languages, how are you going to introduce Tada or Paite in a school in Manipur? So it is important we have efficient teachers. It is not just knowing the language, but they should be good teacher and also be able to teach science or maths, like use Tada as a medium of instruction, not just language for only learning a language. So that was my statement.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Now, I will just request Maliza to just give her observation.
Thank you so much to all the paper presenters. And to follow up on what he already said regarding there's no scope in teacher training for these languages to be incorporated in school education. And like you have also said that we have NERLC at Guwahati. Of course, we've been working earlier in those days also to ensure that our curriculum framework and other materials are translated by the experts from NERLC. That we have done in the past. But his question is also very genuine, because now if we're talking about inclusive approach to education, where we're bringing in all the minority languages, there's always this gap between the linguistic researchers and the teacher education, be it any aspect of language education or any language, there's always this gap. So probably in the years to come, how we can incorporate these into B.Ed syllabus. Like he said that for disability, they have a small courses as part of B.Ed, but for languages also to be inclusive, maybe we have to sort of think of reforming the language curriculum as a whole, because although the curriculum itself, national curriculum, imbibes all that linguistic diversity, but we are not doing it in practical. So our teacher education should be able to provide a platform to strengthen the skills of the teachers to handle a multilingual classroom and how to use these multilingual resources. So maybe in collaboration from your side, CIIL, maybe you'll have to come up with some kind of a kind of collaboration where how do we bring into NCTE understanding of teacher education when it comes to language education, to work closely with the teacher education. With, these are the gaps that keeps on existing for years and years. We've been talking about it. So maybe now that we have a mandate to perform, probably you can think of several other things, to work and to bring NERLC much more in frequent contact with teacher education program, because school is the platform to promote any form of language also. So thank you so much personally from my side. And I see Professor Rajesh Sachdeva is online. So are you going to come in and say a few words, sir?
No, I'm really very happy at this entire seminar proceedings. I can't express, how good I've been feeling this morning. I really want to congratulate you that even in the very difficult pandemic times, you have got so many people together thinking constructively about how to attend to the own people of this country. My plea with you, I think I'll try to take off from the last point that Melissa was making and Uma was talking about the NERLC. I think the two agencies, NCERT and CIL, have not worked out a partnership on in dealing with language education. And I think Northeast is the place where where there's a sense of willingness if we bring it about. And I think along with the communities, when the partnership happens, tomorrow when I get a chance to talk about it, I might dwell on it. But I see there are three components of the exercise that we all need to be doing all the time. What I call the documentation of languages, the detail, and number two, description, which is where the linguist can best do description of languages. And description of languages not only in their own terms, but in relation to other languages, for instance. Then you understand the diversity, how you compare A with B and B with C, So the idea of descriptions, not of a language, but language in relation to other languages. And finally, the idea of development. And development of languages means development of people is the core of the component. Human resource development will be the most critical component of taking languages forward. This is where we are very genuine concerns. I think Melissa put it very well about how to integrate the entire thing and bring CIL into the thing. So when you take up the programs in future, if you want to develop B.Ed programs, suppose you have a special set of people who want to specialize in language education, in your BA language education, let's say. They are looking for people who will become language teachers in future. Such a set of teachers, they might want to learn another language, for instance, for a few months to experience the idea of the problems that you encounter as a learner. Because you're going to be teaching languages, so you should participate as a learner. So you learn a Santali or a Tibetan or a Punjabi or a Odia or something of those languages. So you learn in that sense. You engage. It's extremely important to have a component of language plus about language.
Yes, sir.
Most people, and then the idea, what do you mean about teaching true language? The idea of language has three components, about a language, the nature of language. So we have to talk about that. This is where linguists and educationists need to partner forward. And the communities, they are the big stakeholders. They are the real repositories. They are the masters of the language. They are the people who will guide us. We may be holding positions of power and importance and resources, but the real resources are with the communities. They are the speakers of the languages. So they will come forward and we should be seen as helping, working with them, together with them, and working and developing collective language planning, collaborative programs, working with the and with an understanding that the rightful place of minorities will actually create an ecology in which the majority should feel enriched. The majority's communities stand to gain immensely. For instance, let's say English, let's take the example of English. English has gained so much because non-English people have started using Englishes. Indian English has contributed to the richness of English. African English has contributed to the growth of English. Wherever English has traveled, it has gained by the people of that area contributing to the growth of English. So also Hindi. Hindi will gain immensely when it goes to, and that is the directive of Hindi as well. When you look into it, when the people from South or Northeast or Bengal or Urdu, they contribute to the growth of Hindi, Hindi will grow, not because of Hindi speakers.
Yes.
It will grow because of non-Hindi speakers contributing. Similarly, the minorities will contribute. All the Rabhas, the Bodos, the Theories, the Tivas, when they contribute to Assamese, Assamese will become enriched more and more. So I think that's an important part we realize. That the minorities are major contributors to the growth of even little languages. And they, in return, require equality of treatment. They need to be treated with the same sense of dignity and equality. We are not doing any favor to minorities by rolling out these programs. Remember that. They are equal. In the constitution, there's nothing called majority minority. We need the people of India. That's it. These are all constructs of political demographic constructs. So we will have to set aside our conditioning and come with a sense of equality, a sense of coming together as brothers, joining hands and doing work with each other for the sake of developing. We are all to gain from the growth of the others, each other. So that is my point of view on this issue.
Sir, thank you so much for the perspective that you've given us, suggestions also. Of course, we look forward to working together, and we have the support of our principal, our director, and so since we're pressed of time and the suggestions that you're giving us right now, sir, we will take it up also in the last day of the session where we would request everyone to be present. And so now we will wind up for today. Thank you so much. I hand over to the chairperson.
Okay, as the as the moderator, first of all, I really like to thank our chairperson here, Professor Umarani. Thank you so much for from the beginning, from the wonderful presentation, and then being with us right throughout, giving your observation on each of the papers, and taking all the queries and giving us many more insights. Thank you so much. I thank all the presenters here. We had 6 paper presenters here. Thank you so much. And I saw that you all have you all have put an effort into the paper, and I really appreciate that. And and also I thank all the audience, all the others who have joined, and all the comments and the insights given by everyone else here. Thank you so much. And so with this, we will wind up our session for today. Thank you so much, everybody. Yes.
I just wanted to thank everybody, like Melissa and her team, for inviting me, and also for this wonderful session. And of course, last but not least, we definitely have collaboration. NCERT team, like Professor Che was said, like time has come now for having collaboration with CRL, not just any RLC. We should produce more and more materials on other languages of the Northeast as well, for multi-purpose, of course. There are lots of things we can do together. I think after the completion of 50 years of CIL, we are now interested in expanding our work with minority language education, language documentation, Northeast language development, and so on and so forth. So thank you once again, all of you, for your interaction. It was lovely to be with you.
Okay,
thank you so much, Melissa. Thank you so much. Okay, bye.